Hebrews was written to Christians who were worn out, discouraged, and ready to throw in the towel on their faith. Life was tough. They were dealing with pressure, persecution, and the everyday grind of trying to follow Jesus in a world that pushed back against them. Some were even thinking about going back to their old ways, stepping off the path of faith. But the writer of Hebrews jumps right into that moment, and into ours too, by reminding us how amazing Jesus is and how solid God's promises really are. In Hebrews 1-4, the big point is simple. Jesus is greater. He's greater than the angels who brought the law, greater than Moses who led Israel, and greater than Joshua who took them into the promised land. Jesus is the Son of God, the shining reflection of God's glory, and the one who gives his people real rest. Hebrews 2:1 says, we must pay much closer attention to what we have heard, lest we drift away from it. In other words, don't lose focus on him. In Hebrews 5-7, we see Jesus as our perfect high priest. Unlike the old covenant priests, he's eternal, holy, and chosen by God himself. He gets our struggles because he became human and went through suffering too, yet without sin. Hebrews 6:9 says, we have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. Our hope is locked in Jesus. Then in Hebrews 8-10, the writer shows us that Jesus brings a new and better covenant. The old one, with all its sacrifices and rituals, could never really clean the heart. But Jesus gave himself once and for all, a perfect sacrifice that wipes away sin forever. Because of his blood, we can come close to God with confidence. Hebrews 10:22 encourages us, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with a full assurance that faith brings. Thanks to Jesus, the way to God is wide open. Then in Hebrews 11, we get the famous Hall of Faith. It's a lineup of men and women who trusted God even when they couldn't see how things would turn out. Abel gave a better sacrifice. Noah built an ark while everyone laughed at him. Abraham obeyed and went, even though he had no idea where he was headed. Moses chose to suffer with God's people instead of living it up in Egypt. And many others endured hardship, persecution, and even death, all because they trusted God's promises. Hebrews 11:1 defines faith as confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. The story shows what it really looks like to live by faith. Now, in Hebrews 12, the spotlight turns from them to us. After laying out how Jesus is supreme, our high priest, the new covenant, and all those examples of faith, the writer brings it home. Hebrews 12:1-3 says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. This passage begins by reminding us that the Christian life is not lived in isolation. Hebrews 12:1 begins with these words, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. That word, therefore, connects us back to chapter 11, the Hall of Faith. Abraham, Moses, Rahab, and countless others who trusted God against all odds. Their lives are not just stories of the past. They are testimonies that faith works, that God is faithful. We are surrounded. Picture a stadium filled with saints who have gone before us, urging us forward. Their presence reminds us that we are not alone. We are part of a great story, a great people, a great testimony of God's faithfulness through the ages. And this is no small crowd. It is a cloud, a multitude too vast to count. Their lives are not passive examples. They are witnesses. They testify to the reality of living by faith, pointing us not to themselves but to Christ, the true pioneer of faith. Now, the writer of Hebrews calls us to action. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. Some weights are not sins, but they slow us down. Distractions, habits, even good things that keep us from running effectively. Some sins are admired by the world, but deadly to the soul. Some sins are subtle snares, entangling us before we realize it. The call is clear. Do not excuse them, but in the power of the Holy Spirit, lay them aside. Then comes the charge. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. The Christian life is not a sprint, it is a marathon. Endurance is essential. Paul in Acts 20 verse 24 described his life as a race he must finish with joy. Each of us has a race set before us by God. It requires effort, commitment, and perseverance. Endurance means steady determination, unhurried, undelayed, refusing to be deflected. God does not call us to start the race only, but to finish it well. And how do we run? Verse 2 tells us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Jesus is our focus, our inspiration, our example. To look unto Him means to look away from distractions and fix our eyes on Him. He is both the author and the finisher. He begins the work of faith in us, and He promises to complete it. He is with us at the starting line, the finish line, and every step in between. Jesus endured the cross not because it was joy, but because of the joy beyond it, the redemption of His people and the glory of God. He despised the shame, bore the mocking, the beatings, the crown of thorns, the robe of ridicule. Yet He endured, and now He is seated at the right hand of God in glory. Finally, the writer of Hebrews gives us a simple but profound command. Consider Him who endured such hostility from sinners against Himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls. This is not a casual glance at Jesus. To consider Him means to fix our minds, to meditate deeply, to weigh carefully all that He endured and accomplished. It is a deliberate act of remembrance and reflection that strengthens weary hearts. Consider His hostility. Jesus faced relentless opposition from the religious leaders who plotted against Him, to the crowds who mocked Him, to the soldiers who beat Him. He endured hostility at every turn. He was misunderstood, rejected, betrayed, and condemned unjustly. When we face criticism, rejection, or hostility for our faith, we are not alone. Jesus walked that path before us. To consider Him is to remember that He knows exactly what it feels like to be opposed, and He overcame. Consider His shame. The cross was not only a physical torment, but also a public humiliation. He was stripped, mocked, crowned with thorns, and nailed to a tree as if He were a criminal. Yet He despised the shame. He refused to let it define Him. When shame or embarrassment threatens to silence us, we consider Him. He bore shame so that we might share in His glory. He turned His grace into triumph. Consider His endurance. Jesus did not quit. He kept His tongue, His cause, His progress, His joy, His love. He endured to the very end, finishing the work the Father gave Him to do. When the race feels long, when sin entangles, when discouragement whispers that it's easier to give up, we consider Him. His endurance becomes our model, and His Spirit becomes our strength. Consider His victory. The cross was not the end. He rose, He ascended, He sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. The one who endured hostility now reigns in glory. To consider Him is to remember that suffering is not the final word. Victory is, glory is, joy is. And the same promise awaits all who endure in Him. The writer says, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls. Weariness is real, discouragement is real, but they are not inevitable. The antidote is to consider Him. When our souls grow tired, when our hearts grow faint, when our faith feels fragile, we lift our eyes to Jesus. We remember His hostility, His shame, His endurance, His victory, and in Him we find strength to keep running. Hebrews 12 verse 1-3 reminds us that the Christian life is a race of endurance. It is not easy, but it is worth it. We are surrounded by witnesses who testify to God's faithfulness, yet the call is clear. Above all, consider Him. When the race feels long, when sin entangles, when weariness weighs heavy, consider Him. Consider the one who endured the cross, who despised the shame, and who now reigns in glory. Consider His strength, His joy, His victory. He is the author and the finisher of our faith. He is our example, our inspiration, our strength. So let us run, not passively, not half-heartedly, but with endurance. Let us run with our eyes fixed on Jesus. And let us finish with joy, knowing that one day we too will share in His glory.